sure anyone who watched the Pokemon anime growing up had fond memories of the movies. They were mostly self-contained, fun little adventures with Ash and whichever friends he brought onto Death's Door alongside him. But how good were they really? Well, I watched all 24 of them, spanning across almost every generation, to answer that very question. And yes, this video was inspired by Ted Niven's Barbie video, which is an amazing video and you should watch it if you haven't, after you're done watching this one, of course. So, similar to his video, I'm splitting the movies into my personally curated and officially recognized eras of Pokemon theatrical releases. First, the classic era, which took place from 1999 to 2006, based on US release dates. The golden era, spanning from 2007 to 2016, not necessarily because the quality of these movies happen to be better, but these are what I grew up with, so I'm biased. And the modern era, which started in 2017 and is going to present day, where they just do whatever they wanted. This will make covering the movies I want to talk about much easier, so we can just speed through the ones that weren't all that special. These will all be in the dub, by the way. I've heard that, especially for the early movies, a lot of the plot can get lost in the less than stellar translations, but that's how I wanted to watch them, and those are the versions I'll be talking about. And since we're going to be talking about them all, we might as well grade them. So here's how that's going to go. I'll be giving each film a grade out of 20 based on 4 categories. Story. How interesting/unique was the story? Did I get invested, or could I not even understand a single thing that was happening? Battles. How cool were the battles? Pretty simple category. It's a Pokemon movie, it's gotta have some cool battles. It's the law, look it up. Enjoyment. How much did I enjoy the movie? Was I smiling through it all, or glancing at the clock waiting for the torture to end? And finally, Ash's mortality. If you've seen a few Pokemon movies, you'd already know that Ash is a little bit, how do you say it? Insane? There's at least one moment in almost every movie where he risks his life for some reason or just straight up dies, so that's what this category is for. The closer to death he is, the higher the score. Now, you might be thinking, so in order for a Pokemon movie to be perfect, Ash has to die? Yeah, pretty much. Also, if the movie has a banger intro song, it gets a bonus point, so theoretically, the best of these movies can get up to a 21 out of 20, but we'll have to wait and see if any of them can reach that level of critical acclaim. And finally, one last thing. I'm not a critic, and I don't claim to be some higher intellectual being whose takes on these movies are the end-all be-all. I'm just a guy who likes Pokemon a lot, so if you've got an opinion of mine that you disagree with, that's totally cool. I'm glad you can find enjoyment in things that I can't, and hopefully we can have a fair discussion about it if you want. But with all that out of the way, let's get into the first movie on the list, which... Oh, Pokemon the first movie, how fitting. Pokemon the first movie, or Mewtwo Strikes Back as might be better known, is where it all began. Basically, a group of scientists get hired by Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket, to create a Pokemon super weapon through cloning. But the laws of nature don't like that, so it blows up in their face. This creates Mewtwo, who goes on a bit of a tantrum and builds a sick-as-hell villain lair on a secluded island where he invites strong trainers to come and fight him or whatever. He hates humans and wants to kill them all, but Ash is like, what if I killed myself right in front of you? And he's like really chill now. Also, Mew is the cutest thing ever. Mewtwo's whole story is actually super f***ed up and really well written, and the story that follows is pretty fun, so 4 out of 5 for that. It's a perfect movie for a TV show, though it does feel like an extended episode sometimes. The battles were alright. Ash's Charizard versus the clone Charizard was definitely the highlight, but it totally slipped my mind that they got the Backstreet Boys feature for the clones fighting scene, so that took me out a bit. 3 out of 5. This was such a fun watch though, no question. Like, I'll always love this movie until the day I die, so if I'm ever not enjoying this movie, you have permission to shoot me dead. 5 out of 5. And Ash literally dies for a few minutes, so that's an easy 5 for the mortality rating. Oh, and it had a great intro, so bonus point for that. Mewtwo Strikes Back gets a strong 18 out of 20. This one was just as great as I remember it being. I also learned from some of my friends that the first 10 minutes of Mewtwo's backstory wasn't included as part of the full movie's runtime in some home releases, instead being a special feature, specifically on the English DVDs, which is pretty interesting. I guess a little girl clone and multiple Pokemon's implied death was a little too much, so they had to hide it behind the silly DVD menu. Anyways, next up we have Pokemon the movie 2000, The Power of One. Most of the story details are a bit foggy, but I remember having fond memories of this movie. And I love Lugia, so it's gotta be amazing, right? Hey, future marker here. Real quick before we get into this one, in my original video I missed a lot of context in regards to the story and what was actually going on, so I say some things that might not be 100% accurate. Like some pretty dumb stuff, I won't lie. Like the prophecy and all the stuff with the birds. But even though I understand the context now, it doesn't change my final score, so just disregard any mention of the prophecy garbage. Okay, thanks.
And Dash is never really alone because he's got me.
What are you doing? You're not doing anything!
Pikachu!
I thought she was gonna say Pikachu!
Misty, you've done literally nothing this whole movie. Okay, I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention or something, but man, This movie did not hit as hard as I remember it. There's this evil collector guy, and his name is Lawrence III. He's trying to capture all 3 legendary Kanto birds so he can summon Lugia in order to catch him, I think. I can kind of relate to him in a way. Ash and the gang get involved in the whole debacle through landing on a random island, which has some festival going on related to the birds. The chosen one, which is Ash, has to go collect the island balls and bring them to a central point where this girl, Melody, plays her flute or something. Hijinks ensue, birds fight a lot, Ash gets all the balls, Baja Blast fills the oceans, and the world is saved. And there's a talking Slowking that honestly is chill as hell. I do respect what they tried to go for with this movie. Having this festival related to the birds and the culture surrounding it is honestly a really cool idea. But I just kept getting confused on what was up with these fucking birds. Like, one second they were chill and breaking each other out of prison, then they were fighting to the death like they didn't just take down a huge-ass industrial ship together 10 minutes ago. I don't know, maybe I'm just stupid, but it felt really weird to me. And it was implied that there were previous chosen ones. Does this world-ending threat happen at every festival? And Ash's name is in the prophecy, which is why he was the chosen one. So was every chosen one named Ash, or is there a different prophecy every time? 3 out of 5. There was really only one battle in this movie, and that was the birds screaming and shooting their elemental attacks for about 40 minutes, which got a little old pretty quick, so 2 out of 5. It felt like this could have been a lot shorter. There was some noticeable padding for time, and it really dragged on during the climax, which killed some of the enjoyment for me. 2 out of 5. Ash almost drowned and jumped in front of a few attacks, but nothing too crazy for his standards, so 3 out of 5 for his mortality. But it did have a really good intro song, so add a bonus point for that. Overall, Pokemon the Movie 2000 gets an 11 out of 20. Honestly, I didn't hate this one. It was just very middle of the road and filled with choices that confused me. It's really hard to follow up after the first movie, so I can't blame it for being a little lacking. On to the next though. My confidence in these movies has dropped a bit, but who knows? There's still 22 left, so anything can happen. While the previous ones were fun, this felt like an actual movie. The story was engaging, the new characters felt important, there were stakes, and it was goddamn beautiful. The visuals for the first 2 movies were great, but Spell of the Unown is like a fine arts painting in every scene. It's super impressive. The story goes as this. There's a Pokemon researcher named Spencer Hale who's trying to figure out the deal with these funky letters. Turns out the funky letters are alive and they pull him into their funky letter dimension. Not good. Oh, and he's a father too, so extra not good. Now, his daughter Molly is left all alone with the Scrabble pieces, but she knocks them all over like a fool. She gets a wish though, so she asks for her father back, and the funky letters spawn an Entei. See, before he disappeared, Spencer would read Molly a story every night that featured Entei. And he would also say that he was Entei, which is like, obviously a lie. I mean, come on dude, you're not fooling anyone except for the 5-year-old girl. Get real. But yeah, she associates Entei with her dad, so that's why he's here now. Molly says she wants a whole family, so she asks for her mom, and Entei runs off to commit a first-degree felony. Cut to Ash and the gang enjoying some time with their Pokemon, and oh, Ash's mom is here too. Hey! Oh shit! Entei straight up kidnaps Ash's mom and puts her in a trance so she believes that she's Molly's mom instead. So now they gotta rescue her. I think now's a good time to mention that Team Rocket is in every single one of these movies, and they do absolutely nothing, but we love them for that anyways. Sometimes they do small things for the plot, but there are some movies where they are literally just in the area and make jokes, and it's the best. I love it. Back to Molly, and similar from Mewtwo in the first movie, she's got this sick as hell villain lair now. She and Ash's mom are watching the news when Ash shows up and snaps her out of the trance, but she plays it off because Molly's too stupid to notice. What an idiot. The group enters the castle and is met with an older version of Molly. She wanted to be a Pokemon trainer, so it came true in a way. This girl isn't actually Molly, it's just how she imagines herself to be when she's old enough to be a trainer. Brock battles her, making some questionable comments.
Figures a cute Pokemon trainer'd have a cute Pokemon.
And the others move on. Walking up these stairs that gotta be some sort of OSHA violation, they run into another Molly, and Misty's up next, leaving Ash to continue alone. Also, Meowth says a line that implies that he's aware that this is all a movie.
Do you think we're gonna get a bigger part in the next movie?
What are the implications of this? What does this freaky cat know that we don't? Moving on, Ash makes it to Molly's room and she finds out that she's adopted. It's a lot to drop on a vulnerable kid like this, so she understandably loses her temper a bit. Ash fights Entei and gets bodied in an absolutely beautiful set piece. And then one of the greatest scenes in cinema history took place right in front of my eyes. Early in the movie, they set up Ash's Charizard sensing that something's wrong. Later, as Ash is about to be impaled by huge-ass crystals, He flies in and saves him in the coolest way possible. I feel like I de-aged back to a toddler during this scene. I was yelping and clapping my hands like a dang baboon. What follows is a pretty lengthy but cool as hell battle between Ash's Charizard and Entei. You ever watch something and feel like that sliver of childlike wonder finally returns to you after so long? God, just take me back. Sadly, Charizard loses, but Molly stops Entei before he can blow his brains out. He gets brought back to reality, and everything's cool now. Shit, I forgot about the funky letters. The Unown go a little crazy and seal everyone in the castle, leaving them to try and fight back. But Entei, being the realest one ever, sacrifices himself and forces the Unown back to their funky letter dimension. And Spencer returns at the end, so Molly is back to the same amount of parents she had at the start. Good for her. It's just such a great movie, man. The main story isn't really about Ash, but having his mom be held captive is a great way to get him and the others involved in a way that feels natural. And the entire third act was just absolute peak. Genuine peak. Easy 5 out of 5 for the story. It was very heartwarming and pretty sad at times. Watching a little girl attempt to cope with her grief over her possibly dead parents was not what I expected to happen in a Pokemon movie, but here we are. It was good. Also, Entei is the realest Pokemon ever. Like, I need a guy like that in my life. As I said a little bit ago, the battles in this movie were great too. And it wasn't just Ash getting the cool battles in this movie either. We actually remembered Misty and Brock this time around. Misty specifically had a super creative scuffle underwater that was very fun to watch, and any battle with Entei was just amazing. 5 out of 5. As for enjoyment, come on, you can guess, it's a 5 out of 5 again. Big shocker, I know. It's just really hard to put into words how much I enjoyed this film, so I won't. Ash's mortality gets a 4 out of 5. Would have gotten a perfect score if some orange lizard didn't come save him from getting ripped to shreds by crystals, but that's neither here nor there. At least he lives to see another day. For now. Only 3 movies in, and we got our first 20 out of 20. This is by far the best of the movies in this era. Only 1 point off the perfection score, but everything about this movie was so great, I'd be willing to give it that point just because. They cooked with this one. You know, maybe my loss in confidence was misguided. This just proves I shouldn't doubt them. I'm sorry, Mr. Pokemon. I'll never say anything hurtful ever again. I promise. Anyways, next up is Pokemon Forever, so let's keep this train going.
And the past can travel through time as well, and so they've all.
I feel nothing. This one was a stinker. The movie starts with this basic looking kid walking through a forest. He gets stopped by this green-haired girl who gives him this honestly really rancid piece of bread and tells him about some forest superstition bullshit. Basic kid doesn't listen and goes in anyway, but he runs into Celebi, who is being chased by a Pokemon hunter. He helps the onion fairy out, which leads to it tweaking and sending him into the future. We're then introduced to the villain of the movie, and I'd like you to guess what this guy's name is. You'd think it'd be something like Razor or like Claw. I don't know, something cool, but no, it's Iron Mask Marauder. It's got these Pokeballs called Dark Balls that are basically like Master Balls, but they turn the Pokemon evil. Name could use a little more work, but I respect the simplicity. His plan is to catch Celebi with one and turn evil so he can rule the world or some junk. I don't know. Throughout this entire movie, one thing I and my friends noticed was the increased use of 3D models compared to the last movies. This was the early 2000s, so that technology was starting to become more prevalent in animated media. It helped speed up the production process and made some pretty cool 3D environment scenes possible, but oh man, did it still look bad. Just wait, because it's gonna get much worse. So Ash and the gang show up, as always, and Suicune is just kind of chilling nearby, kind of weird. They arrive in this forest town called Arborville, and the green-haired girl from earlier is here, except she's like super old now. She's about the same superstition, and Ash does not give a rat's ass, so he runs off. The whole dang forest starts to glow because Celebi actually came to this time period and left this boy for dead against the harsh reality of nature. They grab him and run back into town, where he wakes up and Ash instantly tries to scrap with this kid. We learn his name is Sam, and he's from 40 years in the past. He reunites with Celebi, and they just kind of chill for a while. Up until this point, I was really vibing with this movie. Big fan of Celebi, so that helps. And there was a really cool scene with this lake that heals it, and then they just swim and fly around and shit. Just a real good time if you ask me. Ash and Sam also have this really sweet moment where they connect about their different time periods. But Sam pulls out that rancid ass bread, which I feel like you guys shouldn't be eating. I don't know. If y'all get food poisoning, just know I told you so. And there's a very pretty scene where a bunch of Metapod evolve and fly away while the sun rises. The vibes were just right with this one. Know what I mean? Then the second half of the movie starts. Hope you didn't forget about the Iron Mask Marauder, because he's back. He fights off the main group and gets to Celebi, catching it in one of his dark balls and turning Celebi evil. I just want to know, who made these things? Are they crazy powerful, or is Celebi just crazy weak? I feel like a mythical Pokemon shouldn't be able to be turned this easily by whatever power this dude has. I mean, look at him. Personally, If it was me getting caught in a dark ball, I just wouldn't let it happen, period. Anyways, Celebi is evil now and transforms into one of the biggest eyesores I have ever had to look at for 13 whole minutes. I can't bash it too bad, since this was the early 2000s, like I said before, but oh my god, who thought it was a good idea for the climax of the movie to take place around this fucking thing? Anytime it showed up on screen, I was just totally taken out of it. Now, that's most likely because I'm not a kid in the 2000s watching this movie, so I definitely have different standards, but still, holy shit. Yeah,
oh, there it is in the background.
God, I almost didn't notice it. It blends in so well. My notes for this section are basically non-existent because all I could focus on was this thing. Evil Celebi starts ripping up the forest and just making everyone's days super difficult. Not cool, but it's fine because Suicune finally shows up to do something. It helps Brock take out this evil Tyranitar, and Onyx gets a clean home run across the whole lake. Honestly, might be the highlight of the movie for me. It's just hilarious. Ash and Sam break into Evil Celebi's dead grass mech suit and give it a hug. How sweet. Oh, there it goes. They save the day, but Celebi's like super dead. Now, here's what I thought was going to happen. Suicune purifies the lake or whatever, so they place Celebi gently in the water to revive it. And boom, happily ever after. But no, a portal opens up in the sky, and hundreds of other Celebi just come out of it. They sing a little song, and Celebi is revived. Okay, so now the day is saved, right? Oh great, it's the Iron Mask Marauder again. Can someone please get this guy a shorter name? He grabs Celebi and tries to fly away, but Ash being Ash, he grabs onto him and blows up his jetpack. He almost falls to his death, but Celebi saves him, and then Sam is sent back to his original time. The end. The one cool bit about the ending to this movie is that it's basically confirmed that Sam was Professor Oak in the past, which makes a lot of the sweet moments between him and Ash have a lot more meaning to them. But other than that, I just didn't really feel this movie. So, let's grade this thing. The story was a little boring at times, but Sam being Professor Oak with all the time travel shenanigans definitely added to it. So, 3 out of 5. There weren't any crazy battles in this movie, so it gets a low score by default, but Onyx did hit that crazy home run, so 2 out of 5. For how short this movie was, clocking in at about 75 minutes, there were a lot of moments where I just was waiting for it to be over. The whole second half with the evil Celebi and terrifying CG monster really killed it for me, so 2 out of 5. Ash wasn't in too much danger in this one. He took a few tumbles, but nothing too crazy, so 3 out of 5. Pokemon Forever gets a 10 out of 20 on the official Marker Pokemon movie grading scale, the worst of this era. I'm being a bit harsh, but let me be clear. I don't hate any of these movies. Forever was close, but I can't bring myself to hate a single one. I'm actually lying to you, but we'll get back to that later. They're all Pokemon movies at the end of the day, so they'll always be at the very least charming, even if they're pretty mid. Next up is Pokemon Heroes, so let's get into it. So, Ash kisses a Pokemon in this one. Just thought I'd let you know ahead of time. Rip the band-aid off, you know. This movie is set in Pokemon Venice, where Latios and Latias live and protect it. They once saved the city, so now they're sworn guardians or whatever. Some totally spies-ass girls are trying to find this fancy-looking ball that has some kind of secret power. Turns out, this ball is in the city. How convenient. And Ash and the gang are there too. How convenient again. Ash meets this strange girl who turns out to be Latias. They hang out, Ash starts to get some weird feelings about a Pokemon, and the spy girls steal the fancy ball. They put it into this super weapon that's in a museum for some reason, and it's powered by Latios. So everyone comes to save him. As usual, Ash's first thought is to punch the electrical cage, but it doesn't work. Maybe next time, buddy. Latios is saved, and the super weapon is stopped. Wait, don't touch that! Shit. Cool. Now a biblical tsunami wave is coming straight at the town. But Latios sacrifices his life and dies for real. And then Ash kisses a Pokemon. This movie was actually super fun. I loved the setting, and the race and chase scenes in the water were so cool. I enjoyed the sibling relationship that Latios and Latias had too. It was very heartwarming, and it almost made me cry, so 4 out of 5. Battles are pretty much non-existent in this one, so it's hard to give it a fair score, but the chase scene I mentioned before with the huge Aerodactyl barreling through the city canals was such a fun idea that I'll count it as a battle. 3 out of 5. Enjoyment gets a 5 out of 5 easily. You might be noticing a trend that the enjoyment score is either really low or a perfect score. No in between. Don't worry, the trend will continue. Ash was relatively safe through this one, only being in immediate danger a few times, though the times he was in danger were pretty scary, and he basically died for a few minutes, so 3 out of 5. And finally, the theme song was immaculate for this one, so it gets a bonus point. Pokemon Heroes receives a 16 out of 20. With that, we're out of the Gens 1 and 2 movies and moving into Gen 3. Not quite out of the classic era yet, though. Jirachi Wishmaker was pretty inoffensive. Not perfect, but at least it didn't feel like I wasted 81 minutes of my life. Basically, there's this circus guy named the Great Butler, terrible name by the way, brings a carnival to a random desolate area where Ash and the gang also happen to be. Butler has this rock that Jirachi is inside of, and Max becomes its best friend over the course of like an hour or two. I don't know why they gave this rare meteor to a random kid, but whatever. Turns out Butler actually wanted Jirachi's power to revive Groudon because he tried in the past, but was publicly shamed and has never been the same since. His girlfriend Diane isn't having it, so she takes the gang cross-country to return where she and Butler found the Jirachi rock. Butler somehow got there before them and set up a whole villain contraption, so he gets his hands on Jirachi and summons Kaiju Groudon, practically killing everything in the vicinity, but they inflate Groudon and sing a really good song to turn Jirachi back into a rock. Speaking of this song, May kept humming it throughout the whole fucking movie, and someone please get this girl some singing lessons, and Brock too. Like I said, this movie was fine, though I did like the relationship between Max and Jirachi. It was very cute, so 4 out of 5. The climax of the movie was pretty much one long battle, and it was alright. The Groudon inflation was a little weird though. 3 out of 5. Enjoyment, as expected, was pretty high at a 4 out of 5. It was just a nice time overall, and Ash barely got in any danger, so 2 out of 5, bringing the final score to 13 out of 20. Now, the next movie was one of my favorites as a kid, not because I remember the intense and impactful story or the expertly crafted characters, but because it's got Rayquaza and Deoxys in it, and I like them a lot because they're super cool, so yeah. Hey, Future Marker again. Quick thing, throughout this whole review, I called the movie's original character Troy instead of his actual name, Tori. Don't even know how this happened. I'm just stupid, I guess. So anytime I say Troy, just imagine I'm saying Tori instead, thanks. The first 15 minutes of this movie are fucking crazy, man. Deoxys comes down from space, and Rayquaza is not happy. They have this crazy ass fight while some kid gets Lion King so hard that he gets irreversible trauma for the rest of his life. No biggie. Rayquaza eventually comes out on top and Deoxys is defeated. Or is it? Fast forward some years and Ash and the gang arrive in La Rue City and guess who's back? Though, before Deoxys arrives, Ash meets the traumatized kid whose name is Troy. He's got a few screws loose and has an imaginary friend that everyone around him just agrees to pretend is real out of pity. The city goes on lockdown for the usual alien invasion, but the main cast gets stuck inside and is forced into an apocalyptic scenario. There's a force field around the city and for some reason it won't deactivate, so they're trapped for the foreseeable future. Rayquaza, though, is not happy, again. He breaks through the force field, and there's this sick-as-hell city fight between him and Deoxys. Turns out, the reason Deoxys is attacking the city is to find its friend, which it lost during its original battle with Rayquaza. And double turns out, its friend was Troy's imaginary friend the whole time. Chill Deoxys, as I've dubbed it, is born and meets with the original one so they kiss or something. Then the citywide security system goes AWOL and starts destroying everything. I don't know. Troy overcomes his trauma and Rayquaza learns to stop being racist, so pretty solid messages all around. I really enjoyed the setting and Troy's whole character arc. Their connection to the battle between Deoxys and Rayquaza was super cool too. 4 out of 5. I need anyone watching this video to understand that there is one trope that I love more than anything in this world. You take two extremely powerful creatures or entities, put them in a big city, and let them go at it. It's just peak. 5 out of 5. Just like the last movie, enjoyment was a solid 4 out of 5. The whole security going crazy bit was a little odd near the end, but not enough to kill the vibe. Finally, Ash was fairly safe, so nothing too crazy happened. 3 out of 5, pretty standard. Destiny Deoxys gets a 16 out of 20. This one was fun. Like, I feel like I could say that about most of these, but it'd still be true no matter what. We got 2 more movies in the classic era left, so let's blast through them real quick. I've never been to a Renaissance fair, so I don't know if this is normal, but do you usually have to go on a world-saving quest as a part of the overall experience? No? Man, what's the fucking point then? So this movie is basically Pokemon Fire Emblem, but no, not that one. In the past, there was a hero named Sir Aaron who locked away his partner Lucario to protect him from a war. Now, in the present, Ash wins a battle at this Ren fair, so he gets to LARP as the Aura Guardian for the day. When Aaron sealed away Lucario, he went to this big tree and solved climate change with the help of Mew. But it's finally wearing off, so Ash and the gang, and Lucario, have to go to the tree and figure it out. And while this is happening, Pikachu and Meowth practically get kidnapped by Mew, so they're all chilling at the big tree too. The group runs into some Reggies. They explore Beta Area 0, Ash reunites with Pikachu, and then these weird red Pokemon things consume and kill everyone. Like, I had to look it up while watching. These are basically white blood cells that fight and kill anything unknown to the tree, so everyone who got ate up was 100% not living. Oh, sorry, did I forget to mention that this tree is about to self-destruct? Yeah, so Lucario does the same thing Aaron did and sacrifices himself to stop the tree from becoming a nuke, and the day is saved. They really gotta stop killing these Pokemon, man. I can't fucking take it anymore. This movie was super engaging throughout the whole thing. Lucario and Aaron's story was super tragic, and seeing how Lucario coped with the world around him changing was really cool and really sad at the same time. And him going out the same way Aaron did at the end, it was great. Can't even joke about it. It's a 5 out of 5. But the battles, there weren't really any except for the battle in the intro. They ran from the Reggies for a bit, but I'd be hard pressed to call those battles, so 3 out of 5. Slap another 5 out of 5 on that enjoyment scale. I don't care if it's predictable, it's the truth. I'll be damned if you try to take away my God-given right to enjoy a movie made for children. Can a grown man not have a good time while watching my childhood hero be swallowed by a floating lava creature? Oh, and 5 out of 5 for that, by the way. He was like super dead. Also, peak theme song, best in the series, bonus point. Lucario and the Mystery of Mew gets a 19 out of 20. It was a banger, that's all I gotta say. Now, time for the final movie of the classic era, Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea. This one was alright. We're introduced to possibly the best Pokemon character ever, Jack Walker, who's a Pokemon Ranger. He steals this egg from some pirates and fucks off. But the egg turns out to be a Manaphy egg, and it imprints on May, who was taking care of the egg while they were being chased by the pirate guy named Phantom. They gotta return Manaphy to the underwater sea temple because he's the prince of the sea. I doubt it. But it only shows up during an eclipse. May gets super attached to Manaphy over the course of the journey there, so we all know what's gonna happen next. After arriving at the temple, everything goes wrong and it starts to flood. This whole section where the thing is sinking made me genuinely stressed, like I was in the same situation myself, so points for immersion, I guess. Ash tries to save the day, but drowns. Just kidding. He gets an air bubble from the power of friendship and then goes Super Saiyan, which was like, alright, cool, but also, what the hell, man? Then Kyogre shows up and kills the pirate guy, so Manaphy leaves to go be Prince or whatever. Oh, and everyone's Super Saiyan now. Not a bad movie, but it did drag at some points. Jack Walker carried the entire film, if I'm being honest. Anytime he was on screen was an absolute joy, but even his captivating charisma can't save rough pacing. 3 out of 5. Even though Super Saiyan Ash was a little out of nowhere, it did make for a pretty cool final battle, and all the ocean Pokemon fucking up Phantom's ship was pretty funny, so 3 out of 5. Just like the 2 previous ratings, enjoyment was also very middle of the road at a 3 out of 5. Not terrible, but not at the same level of that childlike wonder as the rest, you know? And as for Ash's mortality, he almost drowned, but it wasn't long enough for him to get, like, fully killed, just unconscious. 4 out of 5. Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea gets a 13 out of 20. A pretty lackluster end of the classic era, if you ask me. Thankfully for you, though, and regrettably for me, we still have 16 movies to go over. Darkrai's the GOAT, all I gotta say. There's something about misunderstood anti-heroes that just do it for me, and Darkrai looks sick as hell, so that's a plus. Basically, he's the protector of this place called Alamos Town. They got the biggest instruments ever, called the Space-Time Towers, and there's this girl named Alice who was saved by Darkrai as a kid. The town is fairly peaceful, but oops, space and time gods! Palkia and Dialga bring their centuries-long beef to everyone in the town, which is super f***ed up. Like, keep it to yourself, you guys. Very unprofessional. Things get pretty bad. The town is about to be erased from space-time. Darkrai takes a few hits trying to protect the towers, but he literally dies. So, to save the day, Ash and Dawn, forgot to mention, Max and May got killed off screen as well, play Palkia and Dialga's favorite mixtape in the towers, and they leave our dimension. I didn't know they would chill like that, honestly. And I lied about the Darkrai dying thing. He's fine. Oh, and there was this Baron guy who got turned into a Licky Licky for a bit and kept, like, licking people. It was pretty weird. Please put this guy on a list. I loved this one as a kid, and I still like it now, so nothing's changed. Darkrai's story was super sweet and made me a little teary-eyed at times. 4 out of 5. The scale of the fight between Palkia and Dialga was actually insane, even if they were just using the same move over and over. It felt like I was watching a Godzilla movie or something. 5 out of 5. Enjoyment was a solid 4. It was a simple, fun watch, but it didn't have me jumping out of my seat for joy. And Ash was fine for pretty much the whole duration, so 2 out of 5. Rise of Darkrai gets a 15 out of 20. Funny story, when I was a kid, the first manga I ever read was the adaptation of this movie, and I read it completely backwards. I guess I was too stupid to notice the page literally warning you to read it the other way, so I experienced the whole thing in reverse and thought it was normal. And I had watched the movie, so I knew exactly how the plot played out, and I still didn't think it was weird. My brain was rotted from the very start. Anyways, next up is Giratina and the Sky Warrior. This one was my movie. This shit was my whole personality as a kid, man. You don't understand the chokehold this movie had on my 8-year-old little brain. Too bad I barely remembered any of it. Still good though. Cool thing about these movies set in the Sinnoh region is that they're all connected like a trilogy. The events of the previous movies carry over into the next, which is pretty unheard of for a Pokemon movie. It's honestly pretty cool. The crazy fight that Dialga and Palkia had in the last movie brought pollution into Giratina's world, so naturally he's pissed off. But Shaman gets caught up in it all by mistake and assumes Giratina is trying to kill it. Ash and the gang agree to take Shaman to the Flower Garden for whatever reason, but get caught up in an even bigger predicament on the way up there. Basically, there's this homeless guy who lives in Giratina's world, and he used to have a research partner named Zero, but he's evil now for reasons. He gets a hold of Giratina to steal his life force or something, and goes to rule the Distortion world. Honestly, I'd let him have it. It's been over 10 movies, I think at least one of these villains deserves a win. But nah, they kick his ass and deliver Shaman to the Flower Garden. And Ash cries for some reason, even though he and Shaman were arguing for like half the movie. It definitely still held up from my childhood. Shaman can be a little annoying, but it was made to be a brat, so it's kind of the point. Zero was so over the top though, and I loved it. Cartoonishly evil villains are the best breed of villain, and I'll die on that hill. And like I mentioned before, this being connected to Rise of Darkrai was super cool, so 4 out of 5. The battles were cool, but not nearly on the same scale as the fights between Dialga and Palkia in the last movie. Still, Giratina fighting Zero in his fanboy-ass ship was fun, so 4 out of 5. Oh wow, another 5 out of 5, huh? Super critical and original, man. What's next? Gonna give the sky a 5 out of 5 for being blue? No. Again, Ash didn't do all too much that would get him killed, but he did ride on top of a moving aircraft for a bit, and that could have been ugly, so 3 out of 5. Giratina and the Sky Warrior gets a 16 out of 20. If these rankings were just based off of bias alone, I would have given it a 21, but I'm here to spread the truth, not my correct opinions. Now, to cap off this trilogy of Sinnoh movies, let's move on to Arceus and the Jewel of Life. Yes, I say Arceus, get over it. The final movie of the Sinnoh trilogy, and a pretty good one to cap it off, to be honest. It's about Arceus coming back to lay judgment all over the people who wronged him in the past. Don't know why he sounds like a normal dude, but whatever. Turns out, he was betrayed after giving some humans the Jewel of Life, which brought peace and prosperity to their lands. But it was just a 30-day trial period, so they had to give it back eventually. Only they didn't, and backstabbed a literal god. Not a wise choice, but who am I to judge? So Dialga sends the group back in time to figure out what happened and change the future. There's a pretty cool guy named Damos, and he wants to give the Jewel of Life back, but an evil fella named Marcus doesn't wanna. So he tries to possess Damos and betray Arceus. Doesn't matter though, cause Ash and the gang intervene and save Arceus. Ash himself does some crazy shit in this movie, by the way. Like, there's no feasible way he got that. But yeah, the future is fixed and everyone's chill now. Super fun concept for a movie like this. I've always really enjoyed time travel shenanigans that aren't super convoluted, and they kept this one simple. 5 out of 5. Battles weren't anything crazy, but they were fun nonetheless. Seeing the legendary trio scrap at the beginning was sick as hell though. 3 out of 5. Got another 5 out of 5 for enjoyment. It's par for the course at this point. In this one, Ash wasn't too close to dying, instead he was close to being wiped from existence entirely, which is pretty close. 4 out of 5. And add a point for the banger theme song. Arceus and the Jewel of Life gets an 18 out of 20. That's the highest score of this era so far, but not the best. We'll get to that one soon. Next up is Zoroark, Master of Illusions. I haven't brought it up, but this movie continues a trend that started around Gen 2, where the final movie of that gen features a Pokemon from the next generation in order to build up hype for the next game/anime series. It's a really smart idea, actually. Latios and Latias in Gen 2, Lucario in Gen 3, and now Zoroark in Gen 4. So let's get into it. At this point, I was kind of zoning out, to be honest. I had watched 12 Pokemon movies over the course of the past day or two, and it was starting to catch up with me. So a lot of this movie just went in one ear and out the other. Sorry. I'm not letting that affect the score though, so don't worry about that. So the main group are traveling to this city where a major Pokemon Bocker championship, yes, it's called Bocker, is happening. But the main guy competing, Kodai, is an evil asshole who's holding Zoro and Zoroark hostage. Zoro escapes, runs into Ash, and everything goes to shit. This wasn't a good movie to lose focus on, cause a lot happened in it, and I can barely remember any of it. Legendary beasts show up at some point, and they're shiny for some reason, and Celebi is connected to the town through clocks, so that thing is back. I think the evil guy grabs Celebi by the neck at some point. I can't fully remember. But the movie ends with Zoroark dying, but not really, and Kodai getting tricked by an illusion. I do vividly remember this one girl having a crazy design and her not doing anything. You'd think by her character design she'd be more important, but she had a total screen time of like a minute, if not less. I said I wasn't letting my own mistakes affect the score, and that's still true, but this story was a 3 out of 5 for me. I like the dynamic between Zoro and Zoroark, and the shiny beast showing up was cool, but other than that, it was alright. Same for the battles. Solid 3 out of 5, nothing too crazy. But what was there was still enjoyable. Enjoyment was a 4 out of 5 though. Even if I can't remember most of the story beats, I do remember having a pretty good time watching, so that's all that matters. As for Ash, he was fine, 2 out of 5. Zoroark, Master of Illusions, gets a 12 out of 20. This one was okay. That's it. Moving on. This is probably going to be controversial, but this one was the best movie of this era. Now, before you kill me for having an opinion, let me at least explain myself first. So, some background. There's this guy named Damon who can control Zekrom. He helps some people out in order to push his new startup or something, but they aren't really having it. But after some thinking and more protecting them from a huge glacier, they realize Zekrom is actually really chill. Moving forward in time, this one takes place in a mountaintop town named Eindhoek. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. It's been a while since I watched the movie. The main monument of this place is the huge castle poking out of the ground. It's called the Sword of the Veil and is responsible for sealing the Dragon Force away in order to keep it from causing chaos. What's the Dragon Force? Oh, it's just the invisible power that flows throughout the entire planet, granting perfect harmony between all of life. Duh, even a baby would know that. And it's Victini's job to protect this castle, as he has been for over 1,000 years. Ash and the gang arrive in Eindhoek in order to take part in a battle competition. But before they got there, Ash saves some deerling from falling to their deaths with the help of Victini giving him a boost. Shit, he's kind of far now. I can't... Wait, he's saying something. Hold on, he's saying something. What? He finds a cave to trek through, but starts hearing voices from Victini telling him which way to go. Eventually, he makes it into someone's house. Ash, you gotta be more careful, man. Breaking and entering could go on your permanent record, you know. Oh wait, it's Damon. He's chill when you get to know him, guys, trust me. Chills him around, and then it's time for the battle competition. Victini gives Ash's Tepig steroids, so he one-shots a Samurott with Ember, and not too long later, Scraggy gets some too and one-shots a Hydreigon. Ref, this can't be allowed. Someone disqualify this kid, please. Victini decides to show himself for a few macarons and befriends the group. They take a little walk around the outskirts of town, but run into a force field that only affects Victini. Damon and Manus, the mayor of the town, run into the others and give them the lore of the land. Let me scroll a little bit, hold on. I gotta scroll. Victini was once the old king's Pokemon. Their kingdom would draw energy from the Dragon Force, bringing life and perfect harmony, but you knew that already. In this kingdom, there were two heroes, one standing for truth and the other standing for ideals. And wouldn't you know it, it turned into a war. Zekrom and Reshiram got turned into stones, and the Dragon Force got a little silly, so the king used the castle to seal it. And then he died. Back to the present, and Damon wants to bring the castle back to its original location. Honestly, doesn't sound like a bad idea to me. His mom wished for it, so he's not coming from a bad place. I think we should listen to him. Oh my god, he's killing him! Forcibly using the power of Victini, Damon controls the castle to fly it into the sky, unsealing the Dragon Force. Unironically, this is one of the coolest set pieces in these movies so far. A gothic castle that's shaped like a sword flying above the clouds is just so fucking cool no matter which way you slice it. They were cooking. The group attempts to save Victini from his cage, but Zekrom... Oh, like Zekrom? Oh, my bad, man. I'll just see myself out. I am so sorry. Have a good day. I am so sorry. Goluk tries to fight back, but is brutally killed in the heat of battle. Then Ash gets knocked out and sees Victini's memories in his dreams. The original king told Victini that the castle should never be moved, ever. Would have been nice to know 20 minutes ago, but it's fine. Everyone heads into the underdepths of the castle, attempting to find Reshiram. Ash almost falls to his death for the millionth time, but successfully makes his way to Reshiram's resting place. He just forgot to set his alarm. Happens to everyone. Ash then escapes with Reshiram, and a sick-as-hell fight between Reshiram and Zekrom takes place. While they're fighting, Zekrom sees all the Dragon Force leaking everywhere and realizes he fucked up a little bit, so he flies up and breaks Victini out. However, the Dragon Force isn't a fan and takes the castle into space. Oh, and Damon fell out, so he's most likely dead. I'm just kidding, he's fine. Okay, so there really isn't any other way to explain this next bit, except for just saying exactly what happens. So, Ash freezes to death and loses the life in his eyes. We got another Ash death, baby, let's go! Victini saved the day though, so everything's fine. The Dragon Force is sealed, and the castle is back to where it should be. They try to fake out Victini's death, but like, we knew they weren't gonna kill him. He's too cute to kill. And that's the movie. Let's grade it. The Dragon Force stuff was a little odd at first, but when thinking about the setting and the lore with the legendary dragons, it's not too crazy. And the stuff with Victini and the original king really drove home the importance of this castle. I also liked how even though Damon was the antagonist, he wasn't like a maniacal villain or anything. He was just doing what he thought was right, what his mother wished for. Even if the things he did to get there were a little questionable, it's hard to hate him when he was just trying to help his family. Me likey. 4 out of 5. If it weren't for the floating castle set piece, the battles wouldn't have gone as hard as they did, but they went hard. Especially anytime Golurk fought, he was going up against a legendary dragon. You gotta give him some props. 5 out of 5. Enjoyment was an easy 5 out of 5. Say what you want about the black and white anime, and I could say some things about it. This was such a great story set in that series. Me likey. Again. And for Ash's mortality, do I even need to explain why it's a 5 out of 5? Come on. Bonus point for the theme song, by the way. Pokemon the movie, Black, Victini, and Reshiram gets a 20 out of 20. If I learned anything from this movie, it's that inside of you there are two dragons. One is gay, and the other one is gay. And that's just beautiful. This is probably gonna be controversial, but this one was the worst movie of this era. Now, before you kill me for having an opinion, let me at least explain myself first. So, some background. There's this guy named Damon who can control I won't lie, this movie flew by. Edward Elric is a horse named Keldeo, and he has to prove himself to the Swords of Justice by defeating Kyurem. Don't know why Kyurem just lives in a Colosseum-shaped abandoned train station, but maybe that's just the vibe. It freezes the Swords of Justice, and Keldeo gets its horn cut off. But Kyurem isn't finished with him, so they go on a cross-country chase for a while. After a lot of flashbacks, and Iris and Silence sacrificing their lives in vehicle crashes, he gets a shonen power-up and fights Kyurem for real. He still loses the battle, but he wins in friendship, and that's all that matters. Like I said, this movie felt super fast. It was only 71 minutes, so it makes sense, but it felt like I just watched an episode of the anime or something. Story was nice though, with some good messaging for the little children. 3 out of 5. Throughout the movie, the battles were alright, but then the final battle between Keldeo and Kyurem came around, and it was great. They popped off with the animation and the choreography. It was heat. 4 out of 5. Joven was a 4 out of 5 as well. Not perfect, but still a fun watch. Ash was totally fine the whole time though, so 2 out of 5. Good change of pace from the last movie. Point for banger theme song as well. Kyurem versus the Sword of Justice gets a 14 out of 20. Very average, but even an average Pokemon movie can still be a good time, so I'm not complaining. Next up, Genesect and the Legend Awakened. Let's do it. Another short one. Basically, Mewtwo's a woman now, congratulations, and a group of Genesect are trying to find their home from millions of years ago. There's one Genesect who's really cute and nice and just likes this one flower and wants to go home, and the flower reminds it of its home, and it's crying, and it's just... Sorry. The red one's an asshole, though. They try to take over Central Park, but Mewtwo isn't a fan, so they try to reason with the mean one, and it turns into a fucking awesome city fight. What can I say? I'm easy. They go all the way up to space, and Red Genesect understands the meaning of life now. I'm not gonna go into crazy detail since I don't want this video to be longer than it already is, but the themes and messaging in the movie actually hit so hard, and using two man-made Pokemon to show both sides of that conflict with humanity was such a good idea. And at the end, they find a new place to live with the same flowers that bloomed at their previous home. The story's a 5 out of 5. Again, it was short, just like the previous one, but I feel like the time was used so well to get the point across. And that one cute Genesect just broke my heart, man. Battles were a 5 out of 5 as well. Mewtwo versus the red Genesect through the city was so cool, it just makes my brain so happy. Enjoyment was a 4 though. Only because I didn't get to see more of the cute Genesect. I love them. Oh yeah, I totally forgot to mention Ash through this whole review. He was fine. There were like 1 or 2 close calls, but he's a big boy now. He can take it. 3 out of 5. Banger theme song too. Genesect and the Legend Awakened gets an 18 out of 20. I thought I wouldn't enjoy this random cluster of relatively short movies, but they're pretty fun so far. And we got a few more of similar length to go, so let's keep on. We're in Gen 6 now, and we got my boy Greninja, so this movie is already perfect. I don't care. No matter what anyone says, it's already perfect. Long story short, Diance is a princess and needs to talk with Xerneas to repair their Steven Universe reference. But a bunch of thieves are trying to kidnap her since she's a walking, hovering infinite money glitch. They'll fight and chase for a while, but turns out no one was briefed about the Cocoon harboring darkness and despair right under their feet, so Yveltal joins in. Flies around killing everyone, as you do. Diance has a magical girl transformation, and everyone's saved. Good job, guys! Pikachu! Yeah, the roles from the first movie get reversed, and Pikachu gets turned to stone this time. But like 2 seconds later, he's revived, so it's fine. Then Xerneas turns into a tree, and Diance fixes the Steven Universe reference. My final note for this was definitely a movie that I watched, and I feel like that describes how I feel about it more than I myself could explain. 3 out of 5. Battles were 3 out of 5 as well, mostly for the cool battles in the theme song segment, but there were some other cool moments sprinkled here and there. Staying consistent, enjoyment was a 3 too. It was okay. If anything, I should have given this movie a Pikachu mortality rating because Ash was completely unscathed. 2 out of 5. They brought back the OG theme song for XY, and it's peak. Bonus point. Diance and the Cocoon of Destruction gets a 12 out of 20. Definitely a movie that I watched. I'm getting a little tired, but there's still 7 movies, so I can't quit when we're so close. I just need a refresher, a nice fun movie that makes me smile and not have to worry about the hours, days that I'm putting into this. Please, just please let this one be good. What do you do when you lose the will to keep going? Asking for a friend. If you thought I was harsh on Pokemon Forever, just you wait, because this one's gonna be rough. And if this is your favorite movie, I am so sorry, but you might want to skip this next one. Before I even get into explaining the plot and everything that happens in this movie, which isn't a lot by the way, let me make just one thing very, very clear. I hate Hoopa. Now, I see myself as someone who doesn't get too annoyed by fictional characters like some other people do. I mean, I've seen people talk about characters like they just killed their whole family or something when they were just being a little silly, but this one broke me. To me, there is nothing redeemable about Hoopa in this movie. It just says the same line over and over and over and over while having this grating voice that made me cringe anytime it opened its mouth. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's get through the movie and I'll give my opinions as we go, okay? In the past, when Hoopa was extremely powerful, it teleported to a random village in the desert. It stole some food and stuff, so when the people started to complain, it spawned an infinite money glitch. Hoopa basically became the ruler of this village, and it got pretty bored, so it summoned legendary Pokemon to battle. Things kept escalating, and eventually this dude showed up with a sick custom bong and sealed Hoopa's great power away. The man took Hoopa to his village and took it under his wing. He's got more patience than me, I'll just say that. In the present, Ash and the gang are having a pool party when Hoopa starts pulling some pranks. Ash jumps through the ring and meets Hoopa. They have some not so witty banter and fuck around a little bit before Ash kidnaps everyone and brings them through the rings as well. Coincidentally, they ended up in the city that they were journeying towards, Dahara City. An old tower related to Hoopa is a famous tourist spot around here, so they were planning on visiting it. I'm gonna be honest, earlier, it was not too long ago, I said, let's get through this movie. And usually with the worst and best of an era, I'd go into a little more detail on the plot, but writing this segment and trying to make it entertaining took so much out of me, I just couldn't do it. So I'm just gonna go forward with the cliff notes on this one. Farewell, journalistic integrity. Hello, bias. Hoopa's evil now, but then it's not. We get some backstory on the Arceus cult members and how they grew up with Hoopa. Hoopa's turning evil again, but actually fights it off, and evil Hoopa is a different entity now, and the cool-ass bong is broken, so they gotta make a new one. The Hoopas summon a bunch of legendaries to fight for like 30 minutes while the new bottle gets made. Bottle is done. Evil Hoopa is sealed again, but now Ash is evil. We learn evil Hoopa is actually chill. All these legendaries in one place cause a rift in space-time and evaporate the tower, but everyone gets out safe, and God shows up. The end. Like I said at the start, I am so sorry if this is your favorite movie, because I'm sure you never hear the end of how not great it is, but I warned you, I did not like this one at all. It was one of the few movies that I could not wait to be over. At least with Pokemon 2000 and Forever, ignoring the issues I had with them, I still had some sense of enjoyment while watching them. Like, they were fun movies no matter my personal problems with them, but this one was just so nothing. It's really hard to put into words, which sucks because this is like a review, so sorry about that, but it didn't feel satisfying to watch. At least that's what my gut told me, which is crazy because 30% of the movie is city fights with big legendaries, so you'd think I'd be all over it, but nah, it just didn't hit for me. Enough of me ranting though, let's get into the grading. I know I just went off a little bit, but the story isn't completely terrible. If anything, it's one of the few saving graces. The idea of Gris taking away Hoopa's power to show that there's more to life than chasing said power is honestly a good message that I like a lot. And the inspirations for the setting and culture surrounding it are super cool. I love Desert City vibes, but that's about it. 2 out of 5. As I said, the story was one of the few saving graces, and the battles were the second. Even if I didn't really feel much while watching, the battles on a conceptual level were pretty cool. Having a bunch of legendaries square off is a fun kind of like greatest hits compilation idea, and I respect it. 3 out of 5. If I didn't make it obvious before, enjoyment was a 1 out of 5. I kind of already explained why, so I won't say everything a second time. And finally, for Ash's mortality. He was in free fall for a few seconds at some point, but other than that, not too much happened to him. 3 out of 5. Hoopa and the Clash of Ages gets a 9 out of 20. I don't enjoy being harsh on stuff, and I don't enjoy not liking things, like I'm sure most people would agree. But when I do genuinely dislike something, I'll be 100% honest about it. So yeah, on to the next movie. I swear, 80% of the villains in these movies gotta have some kind of futuristic aircraft. Volcanion gets the equivalent of a wheel clamp placed on him, and Ash gets the other, so they're best friends now. Volcanion over here is the protector of Magearna, so he wants to take her to this really pretty tree and guard it. But they get attacked, and this creep and this little rich boy kidnap Magearna and steal her heart, so she's dead. I mean, you need that to live, so it's a pretty safe assumption if you ask me. And the heart gets used to power a steampunk town, turning it into a giant floating castle, because of course it does. Pretty sick fights happen on it though, so I ain't complaining. Volcanion ends up sacrificing his life, but not really because it's a Pokemon movie, and Magearna is saved. Wow, happily ever after. This one was pretty cute, gotta be honest. I like the banter between Ash and Volcanion, and his growth to accept some, but not all humans. Sometimes. 4 out of 5. The battles were amazing. The use of 3D environments that the XY anime is known for was at full play. And Ash Greninja, like, come on. What else would I give it? 5 out of 5. Enjoyment was a solid 5 as well. But honestly, anything is a 5 after the last movie. I can still hear Hoopa in my nightmares. And again, Ash was completely safe and sound. 1 out of 5. Banger theme song as well. Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel gets a 16 out of 20. And with that, we're out of the golden era. It had its ups and downs, but most of them were great movies that I still enjoy to this day. Most of them. Before giving the synopsis and all that, let me just gush about the art direction and animation in this movie real quick. The Pokemon movies had always looked good on like a base level, a decent amount better than how the TV anime looks, but this is a significant step up in almost every way. The characters and scenery look incredible, the battle choreography and animation are top tier, and everything else just comes together for a genuinely beautiful film to look at. And the craziest part is, this isn't even the best looking movie in this era, in my opinion. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Here's how this one goes. Being the official 20th Pokemon movie, this is a celebration of the anime, so to speak. It retells the first few episodes, but with a new coat of paint and some twists here and there. Everything up until Ash seeing Ho-Oh is exactly the same, but after that it starts to shift. He meets up with 2 trainers named Verity and Sorrel, who are the companions in this reimagining. They try to catch Entei, but it doesn't go too well and he runs off. Y'all should get a Pokemon with Mean Look next time, it really helps, trust me. Something I should mention is that Marshadow is basically the crux of this movie, which was kinda odd at first, but I'm glad something was done with him compared to the games, cause he got nothing. Eventually the scene where Ash saves a Charmander in the rain takes place. In the original anime, it was Damien, the reincarnation of the devil, who left Charmander behind, but this time it's a dude named Cross. While this scene is going on, we learn about Sorrel's goal to meet the legendary beast, and we get a backstory sequence of how they came to be, which was genuinely super cool. Ash also talks about his goal, which in this movie is to find and catch Ho-Oh with the rainbow feather he received. Then there's this coolest battle between Ash and Cross. Charmander evolved into Charmeleon and tries to take on Cross's Incineroar. But we don't really need to talk about the conclusion, because like, who even cares about that? Just trying your best is all that matters. That's what I always say. Anyway, the animation in this battle was so great. This is how I used to imagine Pokemon battles in my head as a kid. Lots of movement and back and forth, super flashy moves, so much intensity. It's just a great battle. Yeah, so after that, Ash throws a tantrum and basically tells Pikachu to off himself. Not exactly. He actually says he should have picked a different Pokemon instead, but let's be real, I don't think there's a worse thing you can say to a Pokemon than that. He gets tired from being extra and takes a little nap, in which he dreams about being in a world without Pokemon and sees how much it sucks. Like, we get it, Pokemon are so cool, and we know our world sucks without them, you don't gotta rub it in. Anyways, he reconciles with Pikachu and everything turns out good in the end. After this, another scene from the original anime shows up, and I don't think we need to talk about this one. If you ask me, it's perfectly valid to skip. It almost has no purpose of even being here. Fuck. Just move on. Speeding through the rest, the group meets up with some old guy who's pretty chill with Ho-Oh, and he takes him to the top of this mountain. A rematch with Cross takes place, and Charmeleon evolves into Charizard, basically sweeping the rest of the battle. Cross gets salty and steals the Rainbow Feather, attempting to summon Ho-Oh. Then Marshadow comes out of nowhere and possesses the feather, leading to a bunch of Pokemon becoming evil, and Ash taking a hit from every single one to protect Pikachu. It looked pretty rough, but knowing Ash, I'm sure he'll be fine. Let's go, another Ash death, baby. Yes! Yes! But as usual, it's okay because Pikachu speaks English to him and he comes back to life. I mean, as you do. Then Ash and Pikachu attempt to battle Ho-Oh because it's here now and they lose pretty quickly. And that's more or less the end of the movie. The group goes their separate ways and continue to chase their dreams happily ever after. Now, you could say this movie is nostalgia bait and I wouldn't fully disagree with you on that, but this one was cute. Let's grade it. Like I just said, this one was super cute and fun. It felt like a real celebration of how far the Pokemon anime has come over the years. But it would have felt like even more of a celebration if some of the original characters came back instead of replacing them with new ones that are hard to get invested in. Not to say I didn't like these characters, it's just hard not to wish it was Misty and Brock instead, you know? And the overall story was good, not amazing, but you know, it was good. 3 out of 5. I already gushed about them, but the battles were truly top tier. Not much more to say than what I already did. 5 out of 5. It might have been nostalgia bait, but I did enjoy this one quite a bit. Seeing old scenes from the anime get revisited was cathartic and just made me feel really nice and warm. 4 out of 5. And Ash's immortality goes without explaining. 5 out of 5. Finally, bonus point for the theme song. Pokémon the movie, I Choose You, gets an 18 out of 20. Probably a little higher than how most of you guys would rate it, but remember, Ash dying changes these ratings a lot. So if you want something closer to a quote-unquote real rating, just take out the Ash mortality part and make it out of 15 points instead. But adding points because Ash died is funny, so sue me. Moving on, we have Pokémon the movie, The Power of Us. Warning, this section has a lot less jokes because I just genuinely really enjoy this movie and I wanted to talk about it in more detail, so if you can't handle more than 30 seconds straight without a funny, please skip to the next movie, thank you. If you somehow stupidly thought that I was done gushing about the art direction of this era, you are sorely mistaken, and very stupid. This is the prettiest Pokemon movie thus far, no question. Setting, the characters, the effects, the Pokemon themselves, every single part of this movie is genuinely beautiful. Hoopa City is one of the most gorgeous settings from any of these movies, and the characters have never felt more alive with incredible designs that portray their personalities so simply and effectively, and Ash himself looks great in this film. Definitely my second favorite Ash design ever. What's the first? Slow down, we'll get to him soon. As for the animation, it blew me away. The subtle character movements and snappy cuts of Pokemon using their moves, all brought together by amazing art direction and line work on the characters themselves. The Power of Us is just a treat for the eyes, full stop. But enough of that for now. Let's talk about the movie itself. Like I said, this film is set in a place called Hoopa City. Every year they hold a festival for Lugia in order for him to grant them another year of wind. He's back to haunt me from my 2000 review. It started long ago when the people living here formed a promise with Lugia and he was chill with them, so it was no big deal. I mean, the town was on his way to work anyways, so it's really no sweat. So every year Lugia comes to the Sacred Flame and hooks him up with some wind. Ash is in the town for the Wind Festival and helps this little girl named Margot. She just so happens to be the mayor's daughter. At the same time, we're introduced to a bunch of other characters. Callahan, a con artist, Torin, a boy failure, Risa, a girl failure, and Harriet, a grandma. There's a lot of characters, so it's easy to get confused, but all of them are what makes this movie so good, so try and stay with me here. To keep it from getting too confusing, I think the best way to structure this is to talk about each individual character's arc and how they all converge at the end instead of trying to piece it together as I explain what happened. Since this whole movie is about growth and coming together to solve a shared issue, I think it's best to focus on the characters rather than the plot this time around. But I'll still be touching on it as we go on. So, starting with Risa. She's a pretty normal girl who used to run track, but was injured, so she gave up on it. Her brother is in the hospital for a seemingly similar injury, but he asked for a favor. He wants her to go catch an Eevee for him out in the wild. Risa is kinda ass when it comes to dealing with and catching Pokemon, so she enlists the help of Ash to find it. I just want to say, that's basically like winning the lottery. Oh, I need to catch a Pokemon. Let me just accidentally run into the multiple-time world champ to help me catch it. I feel like you're more likely to get struck by lightning 20 times in the same spot. Eventually, they run into one and have a really cool, dynamic battle and ends up catching it, becoming quick friends. Not too long after, Team Rocket attacks the science presentation for reasons I'll get to later, and everyone in the attendance starts to freak out, running around and trampling Risa's Eevee. Right before, Ash ran off to chase after Team Rocket, but Risa hesitated to run. Could this be subtle character storytelling? Eevee gets healed up quickly, and Risa blames herself for not being able to step in and help Eevee when she needed it the most. Now she has the same injury as Risa, more or less. Same location at least. But she grows from this and runs when they need her the most during the climax of the movie. Eevee shows Risa that even with the injury of her past haunting her, she can still break through and run. It's honestly beautiful. Seeing her beat her fears of running, of getting injured again, it's extremely inspiring for anyone who might be in a similar position. And it doesn't just have to be about running. It can be true for almost any passion or hobby. Definitely one of my favorite characters in this movie. Moving on, we have the mayor's daughter named Margot. The main thing you need to know is that Margot is secretly taking care of an injured Zoroark deep in a nearby mountain forest. Zoroark has beef with humanity because they colonized the Pokemon's forest and built Hoopa City. You know, what humans are best at. Previous mayor of Hoopa City made the citizens believe Zoroark was gone, and if you took one step on the mountain, you'd be cursed, leaving a not-so-healthy relationship for Zoroark and the current townspeople. Callahan makes up some bullshit after a catching competition, that he cheated in by the way, about some kind of rare Pokemon in the mountains. Obviously, he was pulling it out of his ass, but this spurred on some Pokemon hunters to go out searching. So in order to keep Zeraora from getting hurt, Margot stole the Sacred Flame so the festival would have to be cancelled, keeping people from searching too hard. This backfires though, and the wind of the town begins to disappear. Margot's character arc is just as much Zeraora's character arc, and I'd argue that she's only there in order to bring Zeraora's change. Because in the climax of the movie, a power plant explodes in the mountain and it catches fire, putting the Pokemon and townspeople in danger. Zeraora instantly pushes the blame on humans, and he isn't completely wrong, but the message that Margot teaches him is that not every human is as heartless monster as he sees it. There are good people, and they'll always overcome the negative forces when they come together to help each other out. This is shown through Margot herself, Ash, and the rest of the town as they help put out the fire and support Zeraora. Also in Risa, who was delivering the Sacred Flame back to its pedestal when she ran again. Positive emotions bring on change in people and give them motivation to help each other when they need it the most, and it's a really good message. Next, we probably have my favorite character of the movie, Callahan. Like I said, he's a con artist, but he's got a good heart. At the start of the film, he's hanging out with his sister Mia and his niece Kelly at the Wind Festival. Kelly believes Callahan to be this walking encyclopedia who knows everything there is to know about Pokemon, but he obviously plays it up to impress her. He even goes on a tangent about how he saved the city from the mountain fire all those years ago. Like, come on, we all know that isn't true, bud. You know how earlier I mentioned that catching contest that he cheated in? Well, he asked Tauren to help coach him live through the competition in order to take the win. In return, Callahan agreed to present Tauren's research at his presentation, since he's too nervous to do it himself. But Callahan doesn't show up, and due to some SD cards getting switched around, Tauren accidentally puts up the footage of him coaching Callahan on the big screen, outing him as a cheater and a liar. Back during the contest itself, he ran into a Sudowoodo, which is an obvious reflection of Callahan himself, Pokemon who fakes it to make it, just like him. He caught it pretty soon after, but once he was outed at the presentation, he abandoned everything out of guilt, even his Sudowoodo. But after an effect spore bomb begins to fill the whole city, he decides he needs to redeem himself by helping out in order to save Mia and Kelly. He reunites with Sudowoodo and helps Harriet reach the generating station on top of the mountain. The plan is to restart it and use a gigantic fan to blow the effect spore smoke away from the city with a Lumberry bomb. So he throws it into the fan, and it works. You go from a guy relying on lying to get by to throwing all of that away and becoming a hero to the city, just like he lied about at the start. It's really great. Arguably, his character arc isn't as powerful as Risa's, for example, at least for me, but he's still my favorite due to the sheer determination he has to better himself in the second half. Love this guy. Harriet had probably the least content when it comes to her arc, but hers is definitely the most hardcore by far. She's introduced as this grumpy old lady who hates Pokemon and is just kind of hanging around until the climax where it's revealed that she built the generating station for the city back in the day. Okay, so I want you to sit down for this next bit, just trust me. Back when the fire first hit the mountain, all those years ago, the generating station was caught up in it. Harriet had a Snubble, and it sacrificed its life to get her back the key to the station. This Snubble gets engulfed in flames right before our eyes. Now, I know this probably sounds like SpongeBob Kid roller coaster gift to anyone not really into Pokemon, but like, this is pretty messed up for their standards, I'd say. But her fear of Pokemon isn't necessarily a fear. She just pushes Pokemon away so she doesn't have to feel that same pain she did back when her Snubble was killed. Through her determination to save the city, and with the help of Pokemon though, she's able to push past this part of herself and activate the generating station. All thanks to her Snubble getting her that key back then. Last, but certainly not least, we have Tauren. He's an anxious and awkward scientist who wants to help people in Pokemon through his research. Due to his anxiety though, he doesn't get much respect from his fellow scientists, except one guy who supports him. They see him as someone who can't live up to the feats he wants to achieve and is always screwing up, like with his presentation that he wanted Callahan to help with. But when the town is in crisis, he steps up and figures out how to counteract the effect spore bomb with Lumberries, taking his stand as a scientist and growing as a person. Similar to Harriet, there isn't as much content as, say, Risa has, but he's still a fun character, and seeing him stand up for himself was very satisfying. He's also really funny, so. Whew. Okay, that was a lot. It wasn't my plan to write this much about the power of us, but it is what it is. What can I say? There's just a lot to talk about here with all the wonderful characters. You probably noticed by how I didn't mention him much at all, but Ash takes a little bit of a backseat in this one due to the focus of the movie being about everyone coming together and issues not being solved by a single individual. I, for one, really enjoyed this switch up, even though I love Ash. It's just nice to see original Pokemon characters get the focus and time they deserve. Not something I can really say about all these movie original characters, you know? But with all that out of the way, let's get to the rating. The story was a 5 out of 5. It was really hard to have it come across in the explanation, but all of these characters' stories I talked about converge and intersect so seamlessly that makes it so satisfying to watch. And everyone's personal struggles and weaknesses felt connected to the plot in some way and made them feel all involved. I liked it a lot. Like the last movie, the battles were so good. The dynamic battles here are, and I say this with the utmost sincerity, sick as hell. The way animators play with the camera so much in these scenes is genuinely amazing. 5 out of 5. It wasn't obvious by the runtime of this section compared to every other movie, I liked this one a lot. The art direction, the characters, the music, the battles, the setting, just everything. It's right up my alley. 5 out of 5. And finally, Ash's mortality. I didn't get to mention it much since I was talking about the other characters, but Ash was in immediate danger a few times, taking some electricity from Zeraora, taking even more electricity from Zeraora, and almost getting crushed by a radio tower trying to save Margot. Thankfully, Zeraora was there though, so it's fine. 3 out of 5. Pokemon the movie, The Power of Us, gets an 18 out of 20. Believe it or not, even though I glazed it like crazy, this wasn't my favorite Pokemon movie. You'll know when we get there, but moving on, next up is Detective Pikachu. If you didn't already know, Detective Pikachu isn't like all the other movies we talked about before. It's got Ryan Reynolds in it. This one's an interesting case since it's not an anime movie, but it's actually a pretty nice change of pace. I remember back when this movie came out and seeing it in theaters, and I thought it was a really refreshing take on what a Pokemon film could be. I really hope they make a sequel one day, but out of all the movies here, I'm sure most of you have seen this one because it was a pretty big deal, so I'll try to keep the synopsis brief. Welcome to the first Pokemon movie without Ash as the protagonist, meaning we're gonna have to switch up the mortality rating to something else. I've got some ideas, but we'll get back to that once we're at the grading section, alright? Tim Goodman, a guy working as an insurance salaryman, goes on a journey to find out the truth behind the death of his father, Harry. Harry was a detective in Rhyme City and suddenly went missing one day, but Tim learns that he actually was killed in a car crash during an investigation. He meets Ryan Reynolds, Detective Pikachu, and a reporter girl who's also investigating Harry's death. As creepy as some of them can be, I really like the realistic approach to the Pokemon designs in this movie. I mean, it makes sense since they worked with RJ Palmer, the guy behind all those Pokemon but realistic drawings from back in the day, so they were bound to look extremely cool. Though as much as I love Greninja, it's kind of terrifying in this movie. Speaking of Greninja though, they're kept in this secret lab located far off the beaten path, close to where Harry was killed. This lab is where Mewtwo was recaptured and experimented on until it broke out and wiped everyone off the map. The group is here to see if they can find any clues about Harry's death, when they get ambushed by said Greninja and are chased out of the lab, running into these huge-ass Torterra that are so cool. The moments before it's revealed that they're actually Torterra was one of my favorites, because they set up that there were Torterras in this lab, but they broke out somehow. Then all of the mountains start shifting unnaturally, and it's like, genuinely, how is this happening? And then it shows all the Torterra, and man, it's just a super cool scene. Definitely one of the highlights. But because of the Torterra, Pikachu almost dies, but gets healed by a bunch of grass-type Pokemon. Just kidding, it was actually Mewtwo. What's up, man? Oh, he's captured. Oh, okay. You seem a little busy, so we'll catch up another time. It's cool. Drama happens, and Pikachu learns that it was actually the group of Greninja that killed Harry in the accident, and Mewtwo put Harry's consciousness into Pikachu's body. So the whole time, Tim's dad was actually Pikachu, but it's not actually Pikachu since it's his dad. Oh, and I kind of forgot to mention that there's a big bad in this movie named Howard trying to move his consciousness into Mewtwo. And it works for a bit, but eventually the plan is foiled and everyone is saved. And Ryan Reynolds, Dad, is back. A happy ending. Now let's grade. The story itself was fun, but not anything too crazy. The part I really liked the most was the relationship between Tim and Harry. It was extremely sweet and pulled on my heartstrings a little bit, so 4 out of 5. The battles were cool, but not too memorable for me personally. Seeing the realistic Pokemon duke it out was definitely a childhood dream of mine come true, but I don't know. None of them really stuck with me that much. 3 out of 5. Enjoyment was a 4 out of 5. Like I said before, I really like certain scenes, like the Torterra one, and the chemistry between the characters was fun to watch. And as for Ash's mortality, we can't really use that one here, so I've come up with a special unique rating just for this movie. Ryan Reynolds. And I feel like it goes without saying, but it's a 5 out of 5 Ryan Reynolds. Controversial? I know, but someone's gotta say it. It's my cross to bear. Detective Pikachu gets a 16 out of 20. I liked it. Now, moving on, we have another interesting case as it's a remake of a movie we've already talked about. So let's get into it. So you probably could have guessed, but I've got the least to say about this one. Seeing as it's practically a 1-to-1 remake of the first movie, the rating almost stays the exact same. The only difference is that enjoyment loses a few points due to me never really getting used to the character designs and art style in the movie. The Pokemon themselves look great, and honestly everything else does too, but the character looked a bit uncanny to me and I could never really shake that vibe. That gives it a 3 out of 5, but the scale of the battles felt a lot grander since they had a lot more free reign with the camera, so that takes battles up to a 4 out of 5. Here's the other scores that are staying the same real quick, and if you want to know why, then go check out part 1 where I talked about the original. I don't really want to repeat myself too much. Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution gets a 17 out of 20. 1 point less than the original, but it's still good. Last, and certainly not least, we have the final Pokemon movie as of 2024. Pokemon the movie Secrets of the Jungle. So, without further ado, let's talk about my personal favorite Pokemon movie of all time. I know I literally just hyped it up seconds ago, but here we are. The Final Destination, the last Pokemon movie as of this video going up, and my favorite Pokemon movie as of this video going up. Before we get too deep into it, I want to preface that this is the only movie I watched in Japanese with English subs. If you haven't seen the movie or just watched it in English, I won't give away why just yet, but it's a pretty important thing to mention, if you ask me, and you'll see why. Just like The Power of Us, this movie is absolutely beautiful. The art direction is very similar to The Power of Us, and it's, again, just an absolute treat for the eyes. What more can I say? But I won't gush too much right away like the other ones, because I don't want to pad my script more than I already have. I'll try and hold myself back for now, so let's just get into the movie. It starts with a pack of wild Zarude singing their really cool theme song. Like, seriously, it's pretty good. Just look up Zarude chant if you haven't heard it, because there's no way I'm risking playing it here. I want to get on Mr. Pokemon's good side, alright? They're pretty mean to the wild Pokemon, seeing most of the jungle as their territory because of their big-ass tree called the Heart Tree, which is pretty cool, I guess. You guys don't gotta be assholes about it, though. While out on their patrols, one of the Zarude, who I'll just be calling Dad going forward, finds an abandoned child and takes it back to their base. The others don't want anything that isn't a Zarude here, so Dad decides to leave and raise the baby. 10 years later, Coco, the child Dad found, is thriving in the jungle and helping Pokemon wherever he can. Cut to Ash in a nearby place called Milliffa Town. Slight tangent, Ash's design in this movie is my absolute favorite design he's ever gotten. I don't know exactly why, but there's just something about it that speaks to me. Maybe the fit itself, the colors, the face, I don't know. I just feel it in my gut, you know? He's here for no particular reason other than to explore, so he goes into the jungle and runs into some scientists doing some water research. Guys, I'm pretty sure we already know everything there is to know about water, so quit wasting your time and research something more, I don't know, important. Anyways, I gotta get back to writing this 29-page summary of every Pokemon movie, so don't bother me again, alright? Meanwhile, Coco is fighting with the other Zarude over them trying to colonize more of the jungle. Dad steps in and gets him out of there, but Coco starts to have an identity crisis, not sure if he's even a Zarude. He runs off and, oops, metal pipe. Ash saves him though and brings him back to the Pokemon Center where he proceeds to freak out as if he showed a Victorian child a TikTok for you page. But Pikachu is able to communicate with him and they all become friends and just have a good time. It doesn't last very long because Coco pieces it together that he's human and confronts Dad about it. He's not actually a Zarude and never will be. At least that's what Coco says. But I believe in you, Coco. And you can be a Zarude if you really try. I'm sure there's some local conventions that would gladly accept you. Dad knew this would happen eventually and decides to show him the truth. They go to an abandoned lab where a photo of Coco's birth parents remains. Then he gives Coco this ring on a necklace that he had when he was a baby and just leaves. Ash actually mentions his dad for once and talks about how he pushed Ash to pursue his dreams and never give up. This helps give Coco motivation to learn about his parents. And there's this really cute scene where they find out his parents were connected to the water researchers from earlier. Ash points to their logo and is like, Coco, go? And Coco is like, Coco, go. It's just so sweet. I love it a lot. Back at the lab, they meet the lead researcher named Zed, who instantly recognizes Coco's ring. Turns out his parents were the previous lead researchers of the lab, and Coco's birth name is Al. Al, huh? Kind of a weird name, don't you think? Zed scanned Coco's ring, and it was basically his parents' flash drive with all their shit on it. Oh yeah, and his parents have been dead for years. I like this scene a lot because Coco can't understand what they're saying, but instantly knows the truth when he sees their reactions. I just like when language is pushed aside and people's emotions are read instead. It's really cool. On the ring drive, they also find an image of the Heart Tree, and Zed is oddly interested in its location. I'm sure it's strictly for only good reasons, of course. Coco runs off, but Zed put a tracker on him, so he leads him directly to the Heart Tree by accident. Okay, yeah, so he's evil. I probably should have expected that, to be honest. You'd think after all these movies I'd be able to pick up on that stuff, but you know, here we are. It's whatever. A bunch of human versus nature stuff happens, and Dad gets badly injured by the scientist's giant mech in the process. I feel like y'all don't really need a giant mech for what you do, but hey, I'm not the scientist here, so maybe I'm crazy. Zed then proceeds to shoot a huge anchor into the Heart Tree. Okay, I'm seeing why you might need this thing. Not too long after, it's revealed that Zed was the reason why Coco's parents died, killing them in a car accident in order to get his hands on the research. Back when they were the research leads, they had found out about the Heart Tree, but refused to do anything with it since it was used and cared for by Pokemon, and they didn't want to interfere with that. But Zed really wanted that tree, man. So he spent this whole time trying to find that research and learn the location of the tree, even if it meant killing them in the process. So yeah, a bit of a bombshell, but even his employees were surprised, so I don't feel too stupid for trusting him. While all that was going on, Dad used the help of the forest Pokemon to get a power-up and fight Zed with a whole army in this super sick battle. But he gets hurt badly protecting Coco. So they take him to the water of the tree, which is supposed to heal any injury, but it doesn't work. And right after saying how proud he is of Coco, he dies right there. I don't even care. I don't even give a shit. Coco does the only thing he can think of and tries to heal Dad with the power of Zarude, but it doesn't work until it actually does, and he's revived. And while this is going on, Ash, Pikachu, and the other Zarude take out Zed's robot once and for all. They hang him by the arm over the side of a tree. The other scientists apologize, and the Zarude realize they should be a lot more chill and let the other Pokemon hang out sometimes. Now, This last part is why I specifically watched the sub. Coco decides he wants to go on an adventure as he's found his purpose. He wants to become the bridge between people and Pokemon since he's both. He's a human and a Zarude. Dad pretends to be fake mad and Coco runs off grabbing his things and swinging through the forest. At this point, a song starts playing. A song sung from Dad's perspective about raising Coco and what it means to be a parent. The chorus swells as the heart tree erupts into multiple huge geysers. Send off for Coco as he leaves for his adventure. Fuck this scene, dude. It's not bad. It's actually extremely good, and that's what makes me so mad, because I cry every time I watch this scene and read the lyrics of the song. It being from Dad's perspective, thanking Coco for being a part of his life, him saying he's not some hero or a big superstar, but he'll always be Coco's dad, and he's so proud of that fact. It's cinema at its finest. And the dub just doesn't have this at all. Whew, man, right, grading, yeah, Let's do that before I start crying again, alright? The messaging and characters in the story were so profound and had a lot of weight to them that made me truly care about what was happening. Coco and Dad's relationship was also extremely cute and felt so good for the heart to watch. He has genuine love for his son and it's so beautiful. I'm also always a fan of fish out of water related stories, so it does it for me in almost every aspect. 5 out of 5. The battles were cool, but there weren't too many actually. Everyone fighting off against the robot was one of the few main battles, with other action sequences thrown in here and there. They were all super nice though. 4 out of 5. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of stumped on the enjoyment rating here. I really don't know what I should give it. You know, why even give things ratings? To make one thing better than the other? To say that the thing you like is better than something someone else likes? What's the point in that? What do you gain except some small fraction of self-satisfaction since you know the thing that you like is better? Just something to think about. Also, it gets a 5 out of 5. And for Ash's mortality, it's a 2 out of 5. It would have been a 1, but he tripped over some science equipment at some point, and that could have been extremely dangerous, so be more careful, man. And add a bonus point for the theme song. Pokemon the movie, Secrets of the Jungle, gets a 17 out of 20. Not the highest score, obviously, but like I said, the scores really don't matter that much. It's still my favorite Pokemon movie, even if it doesn't get a perfect 21 out of 20. I feel like people get too caught up in scores and ratings when deciding to watch something, or if they actually like something, but it doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10 masterpiece for you to enjoy it or really get into it. That doesn't matter. Basing how much you like something by its score or how universally loved it is keeps you away from truly enjoying something that might not be super well liked. But if you like it, who cares what the scores say? You like it, and that's the most important thing. Don't listen to what some random guy on the internet has to say about your favorite movie. Unless his name is Marker, then maybe you should hear him out. But for real, if it's your favorite, own it. Love the shit out of that movie or show or any piece of media. You get what I'm trying to say, right? Okay, enough philosophy. We did it. All 24 Pokemon movies. Doing this made me remember why I loved the Pokemon anime so much growing up. It took these pixels I saw on a screen and gave them so much life. Like I could really picture myself being there in that world. It was a part of Pokemon that I had honestly kind of forgotten about. So I'm really glad I was able to remember. I loved watching these movies again, but I hated writing this. It was extremely tedious, so I really hope you all enjoyed it. I won't be doing anything like this ever again. Oh man, that was a lot of movies, but we're done. I just wanted to say thank you to anyone who found me through this series or this compilation video or anything before this, because this kind of like took off a little bit more than I thought it would, and it shocked me. So I hope you all liked it. I hope you all enjoyed. If you watched till the end, I'll give you a little sneak peek. Not sure when it'll happen, but thinking of going through all the mini-series, so like Generations, Evolutions, Twilight Wings, all those things. Probably gonna go through those, talk about them eventually. But for now, thank you for watching this one. I really appreciate it. And thank you to all my members for supporting the channel. Love you guys. Really appreciate that very much. But yeah, I think that's it for me. And I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.